Hey everybody, welcome back. So it's that time. It's time to raise the body up and place it back down on the chassis, called the marriage. So let's do it.
Let me tell you, hugging it up the big monkey man. Let me tell you, hugging it up the big monkey man. I never saw you, I only had a view. Hugging it up the big monkey man.
Okay, so here we are with how I've rigged this, if you will. So what I'm doing is using a block and tackle pulley system. I have three of them. I have two in the back that I'm running through the rear windows. These each have a total lift capacity of 350 pounds. I'm planning on the entire shell. I've heard between 350 to 500 pounds of weight, fully stripped. There is no doors, there's no rear cover, there's no trunk cover. It's just the shell. I've heard between 350 to 400 pounds. I lifted this with one other person. I think it's around 350 to 400, just feeling it. So with each one of these pulleys having a lift capacity of 350 pounds, we've got plenty of lift capacity and ability. I don't think these are going to stress out. Because I'm running them here toward the rear of the car, this will carry about 80% of the weight. I'm going to do this with two people. My lovely wife will help me. And then you have a hoist here to the front. So we'll pull it up to the rear and then we'll stop. I'll come back here and go to the third one and lift this one. This has maybe 20% of the total weight, so it's not carrying a lot. It's really just to keep the car level, and that's going to be important, particularly when you come back down to marry it up with the chassis. So if you're going to hoist this, you really need three of them. I took this body off with two, and I will tell you, I got lucky that it didn't flip, because it's very unstable if you're attaching a hoist to the front and the rear. It can flip on you because there's just no stability left and right. So don't do that. I got lucky and had some scary moments. So three of them worked well. So again, these are block and tackle. Let me pull it up to the ceiling. You can see, and I'll take you up to the ceiling to show you how I've got those attached to the rafters. You have to be careful up there because you don't want to max your joists. They have to be particular size joists. I got these block and tackles at Tractor Supply, and they run about 80 bucks each, and they're really pretty easy to use. So that's how I'm going to lift and lower the shell to the chassis. Let's take a look, and I'll show you how I'm going to prep the chassis, because as I slide it up underneath there, I have to have the ability to move it left, right, forward, and backwards to get it aligned just right. So let me show you what I do to the chassis to prep for the marriage. Okay, a couple of things with the chassis to prep for it. So what I've done is I've put the chassis on these wheel dollies, and these just have some casters here that swivel. So you've got your movement left and right and forwards and backwards, and you will need to do that to match up the body to the chassis. Now, what's a really great method in making certain that you're on track when you're lowering that car is these dowel rods here. So I've got a set of dowel rods to the front. These are 5/16 oak dowel rods. You can get them at any hardware store. And so I've put them on the two front bolt holes, right? The two bolt receivers, I should say. And that will need to match up in the front to these holes that you see here. So the dowel rods, as we're taking it down, I can line those up with the front holes and move the chassis backwards and forwards. I have a little bit of leverage as the car is suspended. And I'm doing the same thing to the rear. You can see these shock towers here, so I've got these dowel rods. And then as the chassis is coming down, I will make certain that they match up to these shock tower mounting brackets here. So as it's coming down, as long as those dowel rods are coming direct into those, you're on target and you're good. Now what I don't know about is, of course, the The floor pans, which have these holes here, those need to match. Can't see them here because it's on the ground. Those need to match the bolt-in locations that are underneath these channels. That has to match exactly. So my concern is, as I lower this down, I feel relatively confident that the mounting locations to the front and the rear with the dowel rods are going to match up. But you know, these pans have been replaced, these channels have been replaced, these are aftermarket parts. It's common that they don't match up. So the pans here are just tacked in. I don't have this welded in other than a few locations just to hold it in place, with the idea that I'm expecting once the car comes back down, these holes are not going to match, and I'm going to have to maybe move the pan around a little bit. Sometimes you can elongate these holes, make them like an egg shape. So we'll just see what happens afterwards, and we'll break that down. Okay, so that's that. That's how I'm rigging the body to lift it. That's how I know how to guide it down to the chassis. I did want to mention how I mount these pulleys, these hoists, to the ceiling in my home garage here in metropolitan Cincinnati. Nothing fancy, so you do have to be careful and you know, spread the weight evenly amongst your ceiling joists. So let's go up to the ceiling, way up there, that hole, yeah. Let's go up there and take a look at that. Okay, so I'm climbing up here into my ceiling so we can take a look at how I've mounted these hoists into the crawl space here in my garage. I'm relatively confident that it can support the weight. So let's take a look at it. Okay, I'm up here in my dark and dreary crawl space in my garage, but I did want to show you how I'm suspending and how that weight is supported. So as you can see here, I've got a 5x2, and I'm spreading this 5x2 amongst other 5x2 support joists here in the ceiling. And I spread that out over about 5 joists to spread that weight out really well. And I've just drilled a hole here, and I've put an eye bolt and dropped that through the ceiling, just cut a hole in the ceiling. So that should support the weight. I would only say when you're suspending weight on you know, these common joists, make certain that these are structural 5x2 joists and not your 2x4 joists, because those will go bad on you. So that's how I'm doing this. These supported the weight fine. I talked to a builder. He didn't seem to think that there would be any problem in spreading that weight out. Again, I'm planning on the shell being about 400 pounds. So this is how I've done that. All right, so that's that. So I'm going to close the garage door. I'm going to call my helper out, my wife. And now that I've shown you the technique, or how I've rigged this up, let's take a look at actually lifting this thing up and lowering it back down. So let's do it. opened back up the garage. Of course, I can't have the garage door open when you're lifting this car 4 feet in the air. So opened it back up. The fitment has gone pretty well, so I'm happy with it. I'll just show you some of the key points, how I know this thing is where it needs to be, because there's certain things that have to match up the body to the chassis so it bolts all in and you're good to go when this is on the road. Up front is these 2 points here and here. These matched up pretty well. I think they're off just, and I'm talking like a millimeter. I may be able to compensate for that by just moving this around a little bit and kind of wiggling it around to get those bolts in. Not concerned, but it's really matched up well, given that the front of this car is a replacement piece. If you remember from my earlier videos, this car was in an accident, so the front of that had to be cut off, and this is a donor piece. So this checks out. The other telltale sign of whether we're spot on is the mounts here. If you remember, those guide rods matched up perfect here, so happy with that. That looks good. Motor compartment, no problem, didn't bump anything, so as we lowered it with the hoist, that came down real nicely, no problems here. Here's the other side. This matched up and the shock cleared here without any problem. But what I'm really happy about and what I'm really excited about is the channel to the pan. So as I said earlier, you know, these don't always want to match. This is a complete floor replacement that needs to bolt into the channel here, and these are both aftermarket replacements. And I got so lucky. These matched up exactly. The holes that are in the pan lined up exactly to the bolt-in locations to the channels. I don't have to do anything. So that's such a relief, because I had lowered this body simply to test fit it, thinking that I was going to have to remove the spot welds I have just to hold it in and move these pans to, you know, align these holes the best we could. Don't have to do it, so I'm excited. So next step, I got to take the body back off, so we'll hoist it back up, push the chassis out, and I will weld the pan to the wishbone here, the tunnel permanently. So we'll seal that up and it will be good to go. And then after that, it's hydraulics, getting the brakes, the pedals, the clutch, really getting it to be an operational car. And I'll drive it around a little bit without the body on, which will be fun to videotape. I'm excited about that one. So yeah, that's it. I hope going over this method helps. It's the best that I've found. I've had some lessons learned on the hoisting in a home garage, but it worked out well for me. I'm happy with the result, and I think it's the best method and the safest method if you're working in a small garage like this. So thanks for listening. My next video hopefully will be me cruising around with this car with no body on. Should be fun. So stick around. See you. Thanks. Bye.